My bold prediction is a little not related to the outcome of a game, but to a coaching situation.
Ooh.
I think
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Dorm Debate Podcast. As you can see, we are shorthanded. We're a little off our game. This is our second time recording this. I just forgot to press record, so bear with us for a quick second.
It's because we're missing Jonathan. That's why.
See, Jonathan's not here, and we're just all flustered.
Yeah,
he went to Africa this week.
Yeah, if you didn't know from the last podcast, he made a bet saying the Broncos would beat the Ravens, and if they didn't, then he would buy a ticket to Africa. So he's in Africa, no service.
So it was that, or say something nice about the Bills. So since he's not here, it's clear his choice.
Yeah,
his choice. He did not want to say something.
He did not want to say something nice about the Bills.
All right,
that's funny. It's all right. He will be back next week. You're spared the Cowboys talk for 1 week. Now the Cowboys beat the undefeated Carolina Panthers, and that's our topic first, numero uno. Which win against an undefeated team was more impressive? Now, I just mentioned the Cowboys over the Panthers. There was the Ravens over the Broncos, hence the reason why Jonathan's in Africa. Chargers over the Raiders, and the Cardinals over the Rams. Now, John and Caleb picked the Cardinals over the Rams. I personally picked the Chargers over the Raiders because I am a Chargers fan. John, talk to me about the Carolina Panthers. Talk to me about the Arizona Cardinals. They beat the Rams 37-20. Everything looked like it was in the Rams' favor. The Rams are at home. They just beat the reigning Super Bowl champs. Everything looked like, oh, this is going to be a Rams domination game, and they're just going to steamroll everyone. And the Cardinals were like, whoa, hang on. You thought you had the best offense. We're going to show you what a real offense looks like. They beat them 37-20, and DeAndre Hopkins doesn't even have a touchdown in that game. So tell us about that game.
Right. I think the Chargers win was impressive, but with the Raiders winning so many close games, I think they were due for a loss. But then the Cardinals putting 37 points up against the Rams defense with the Rams at home in SoFi Stadium, that's crazy. I mean, who could have even thought that? I mean, Kyler Murray was just running around like nobody could catch him. The defensive line was exhausted because he just ran around every play. And then you got Chase Edmonds ran for over 100 yards. James Conner, 2 touchdowns. Max Williams, a touchdown. AJ Green caught a long touchdown. And you put up 37 points against one of the best defenses in the league with your top receiver, DeAndre Hopkins, not even getting a touchdown or like over 50 or 60 yards. I mean, that's insane. I don't know who would have thought that, but that was crazy for the Rams. Obviously a wake-up call for them. Now the Cardinals are the only undefeated team in the league, but that was really impressive because, I mean, I probably would have said the Rams were going to win this game, but even if you said the Cardinals were going to win it, I would probably say, oh, okay, they probably won by a field goal or probably less than a touchdown. I would have never thought that they would win by 17 points. So this is Stafford's first, hurdle with the Rams. So it's going to be interesting to see how they bounce back next week. But the Cardinals and Kyler Murray look pretty legit right now. And Murray's not even asking much of his defense. He's putting up a lot of points in every game. So it's really impressive how the Cardinals are playing right now.
Yeah, I said with the Cardinals, I was between the Cardinals and Chargers because I was able to watch those games in their entirety more than the others. But even then, the Cowboys and Ravens were already good teams. It was more on the Broncos and Panthers to prove themselves. In my opinion, I still believed in the Broncos, like I said last week, but that was a different story. I feel like with the Cardinals, why they're my pick is because A, they're still undefeated, and B, dare I say, it kind of felt like the media or the storyline was more posed to people were expecting the Rams to win and come out on top because of them beating the Bucs and Stafford finally kind of blossoming in California. And I think that's still true, but it shows that the Cardinals are kind of still being slept on, and they're the only undefeated team left. They're able to come out and win. And I actually think, like John pointed out, they have a high octane offense. They have a quarterback who can handle the blitz and the pressure more and can run and be able to throw on the run, things like that, and still a defense that can counter the weapons the Rams had. So I was just really impressed that the Cardinals don't seem to be getting that much talked about Yeah, and we've talked about them mainly because Jared, I know you're a big Kyler fan and the Cardinals, but it's like finally starting to come together. Those 2 year or two of kind of building is starting to really show that they have to be considered contenders. So that's why I say it's more impressive. The Raiders and Chargers would be my second because it was really close. And what surprised me was if you guys watched the game, the fans were it was the Chargers home game, but there was, I think the commentators were saying it was more Raiders fans there, and then part of that has to do with, if you don't know the geography of like the movement of the Raiders fans and where their home used to, like where their home stadium used to be, so they have history there, but still they made a point that the Chargers have to win over the fans there, and I think coming down to how hot the Raiders had been, and Herbert kind of showing that he's the real thing. And I think that's what made it a close second. But I also think it goes to show that Murray's the real thing too. That you can't discount either of them. I think it was a good football between those two teams. But yeah, my pick was the Cardinals.
Yeah, I actually initially had the Cardinals over the Rams, but I figured we should shake it up and talk about the Chargers a little bit. The Chargers, I think, right now are sitting in a spot that they haven't sat in probably since, when they made the playoffs in 2017, I believe, or 2018, and they lost to the Patriots. But they have a chance to win this division. Now they've beaten the Raiders, they've beaten the Chiefs in Kansas City. So their next game is going to be in LA, and they're sitting at the top of the division. They're sitting in one of the best spots right now to win this division, which hasn't happened in a very, very long time. So I think that's why this Chargers win was so important for them to grind it out and get it, because now you've beaten the Raiders, who are tied for first place, and you've already beaten the Chiefs back-to-back weeks, and you get the Chiefs at home. I mean, they're sitting pretty. Justin Herbert, man, I mean, it's great and refreshing to see, like, a Chargers quarterback drive down the field and late in games, get touchdowns, get field goals, not turn the ball over. I mean, it's so strange to look at. Like, it's so great. It's like the times have changed. It really has. Like, Philip Rivers, if we were down with a minute left and we had the ball, easily it's going to be an interception. Probably 9 times out of 10, it would be an interception and we lose. I mean, how many times have we seen the Chargers in the last couple of years lose by 3, 4, 5, 6 points? And we were almost there, but could never get it done. Herbert in the Chiefs game and the Raiders game have got it done. They jumped on the Raiders early, 21-0. They had a little setback, let up 14 points, and then they really just shut the door on the Raiders in the end of the game. It was exactly how they wanted to play it. And Derwin James with the game-winning interception, he's finally back. Hopefully that gets him in a groove to come back to like the superstar that he was. But it's great to see that the Chargers are at the top of the division and the Chiefs are at the bottom. We're ahead of the Chiefs now. If we take care of business, we really can run this division, because I definitely believe the Broncos will drop. And the Raiders, I think if that Ravens game went different and they were on the other side of that overtime loss, I don't think they're where they're at now.
Right.
So the Raiders are definitely questionable. The Chargers look like the stronger team right now.
Yeah, I think we saw, like, last year, like you were referencing before Herbert, the Chargers were always 3 things away from being a real contender. The first was a quarterback, and now you got rid of Rivers and you have Herbert. The second was coach. The coach could never make good decisions late in the game. And it was like you guys always found yourself like coming down to a field goal or the last drive. Like you could never put a team away. So
Yep.
that was the second. And then the third thing is injuries. It was always Mike Williams is hurt. Oh, now Keenan Allen's hurt. Oh, well, now Eckler's hurt. Wait, Derwin James is hurt. Like you never. So this is the season that everything has gone right. You got Herbert in there. He's playing amazing. The coach is a defensive minded coach. That defense is playing amazing. And you have so many weapons on the offense, and then nobody's getting injured. We saw Eckler come out for a minute last game, but Eckler's healthy. Mike Williams is finally healthy and performing. Keenan Allen is always himself. You got Jared Cook at tight end. So everything's coming together. And one game that I don't think a lot of people are talking about, but I'm really looking forward to watching is the Chargers and Browns this week. I think they're going to be the third and fourth seed in the playoffs in the AFC come the end of the year. So this could have big effect on seeding. I know it's really early to talk about playoffs, but I think the Bills and Chiefs are going to be the number 1 and number 2 seed. And then, Chargers would have to get the first wild card if the Chiefs won the division. But I think it's going to be close between the Chargers and the Browns. But I think it's going to be a great game this week because both defenses are playing amazing.
Yeah, the Browns, they are playing extremely well, but the offense is bad. What
Yeah,
was
the
what was it,
offense is bad.
14-7 last game?
Yeah. I mean, to hold the Vikings to 7 points at Minnesota is really good. But like you said, I mean, they're using Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt. Like they get probably 60% of the touches. And then it's like Odell and then like some of the tight ends or maybe another receiver gets a catch. But it's going to be a great game to watch.
Look, it was an ugly, ugly Steelers loss against the Packers this week. Now let's go through the Steelers schedule. They beat the Bills, which now just looks like an anomaly because
Right.
the Bills are just steamrolling everyone and the Steelers are having trouble. So they get a win over the Bills. Was that in Buffalo?
I don't know where that was. I forget.
I feel like it was in Buffalo, but
yeah,
they
I
beat
want to
the
say it
Bills.
was.
They beat the Bills. Then they lose to the Bengals. Then they lose to the Raiders. Then they lose to the Packers. Now, all three have really good records so far. So it is tough to say if, this is it for the Steelers. But I feel like after an 11-0 start last year and making the playoffs, this is definitely not the spot you want to be in. 1-3 going into week 5. You should be able to beat the Bengals. You should be definitely beating the Raiders. These are teams that you should be, as a veteran quarterback in Ben Roethlisberger, you should not have problems with these teams. And they lose 27-17 in Green Bay. To be honest, Big Ben looks like he's regressing each week. Only had 1 touchdown, an interception, 232 yards passing. Najee Harris, man, I have him in fantasy. He's great in the receiving game, but he only had 62 yards rushing and a touchdown. I mean, if you look at his year stats so far, it looks like a 1-game stat, like a 1-game stat line for 4 or 5 games. So that's not good. Najee just isn't looking well. And then the defense just had to have TJ Watt was out. There's a lot of injuries that they're dealing with. It just seems like this was not the start that the Steelers were hoping for. And I guess my question is this it for Big Ben and the Steelers? The AFC has so many new teams. Bengals, Chargers, Browns are coming up, Ravens with Lamar. All these teams are on the up and up, and it seems like the Steelers are regressing. So, John, is this just a bump in the road, or is this the start of the downfall of Big Ben and the Steelers?
I think this is more than just the start of the downfall. I think we're already in mid-downfall. We've already tumbled over the cliff, and we're currently falling down at 100 miles an hour. He's done. It's over. I don't think Big Ben's going to last the rest of the season. I think he's only going to last 5 or 10 more games. I'd be shocked if he made it to week 12 or week 13 and he's still the starter. He's doing that bad. He has injuries every week. He's on the injury report and he's questionable every week. Last week it was something. This week it's his hip. I don't know what it is, but he can't, people were saying he can't get it down the field, but we saw him throw a 46-yard touchdown to Deontay Johnson this past week. But with the injuries to Claypool, injuries to Juju, injuries to Deontay Johnson, the offensive line is already bad. Guys, the Steelers will not make the playoffs. I'm sorry to break it to you, Steelers fans. Steelers will not make the playoffs. Big Ben will not finish out the season, and the Steelers will have to draft a quarterback in the first round of the 2022 NFL draft. It's over.
I mean, so let's take a look at this division. The Bengals on the up, Browns on the up, Ravens, even with injuries, are 3-1.
Right.
Even with all the injuries that they've had, there's no excuses for the Steelers at this point. Caleb, what do you think about the Steelers so far? Is this the end?
I was thinking to myself, as you brought up, I totally forgot they were 11-0 last season, right? So usually when a veteran quarterback, I think we if you watch eye test Big Ben, he's a legend, Super Bowl and all that. Um, there's been some regression, hasn't been as good as he was, and there's just kind of that feeling of maybe it's starting to get time to go. And I think you're starting to see that. Is it time? I think it is. I think this might be the farewell season for Big Ben. I think if they just called it now and did it that way, because I think back to how Eli Manning was treated with the Giants. Like you do that much for your team, and then it just ends with like you getting not start. Like I think there should be more of a ceremonious end because
Yeah.
at this point, the reason I think this is a problem and why there's such a dip, it's weird for like if this was Brady who went 11-0 and then starts the way this season did, it's different because there's just a less pressure. You have to take into account how good the offensive line is on your team. Can those veteran quarterbacks who are older and don't scramble as much, do they have a defense that keeps them in the game? Because a lot of the league is going towards younger guys who can run more, and it just opens up a whole another asset of the offense. And with the kind of weapons that they have on the Steelers, like, yeah, there have been injuries, but that many good receivers, how great they've been at developing receiver talent to not be getting more out of it. I was just looking up now that the Steelers are now 2-7 after going 11-0 last season. So it's
Wow.
like the fall from grace. I don't think I would have said it would have been this quickly, but I just guess I think maybe that first I saw somewhere that the first game of the season's kind of not reliable because that's the game teams have so much time to prepare for. It's the first one of the season, they want to look good. But then as you get to the grind of injuries every week, the adjustments, how different teams adjust to their injuries, there's so much variation compared to the first game of the season that like the Eagles looked really good against the Falcons, but now you see how the Falcons are doing. The Bills have improved with as the season's gotten further down the line and the Steelers haven't. So those are the writings on the wall for me to say, like, I sadly, being a Eagles Pennsylvania fan, you always hear it from the Steelers, but I think it is time for the Steelers to move on. My question then is, well, who's the next guy up? I don't think who was the backup from last year who got in trouble?
Rudolph?
Mason Rudolph.
Yeah, I don't think he's the guy.
Well,
No,
Dwayne
he's not the guy at all.
Yeah,
Dwayne
that's what I'm.
Haskins right now is the backup, and some Steelers do believe that he could take over for Big Ben. He has that same kind of big stature, not a runner,
Hmm.
but I mean, Dwayne Haskins, from what he's shown us, has been awful.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's my problem. Is like that's why I mean it's not. This is money. This is everyone wants to win a Super Bowl. This is what I mean. But this is my thinking. Maybe it's time for the Steelers to have a farewell season with Big Ben saying this is it, and then we got to find out because if they had a next guy up, if they had a clear, uh, what is not Protestant, the person next in line to do it, then I'd be
Predecessor.
like, yeah, yes, whatever it is. I'm a little under the weather, but yeah, then it would be different. But then you're looking at years long of drafting a guy, drafting a rookie, developing him. You know what I mean? Like it's. But yeah, I think it is time for the Steelers because the schedule doesn't get much better. They have the rest of their season. It's basically the only easy teams as of now that I could quickly point out, easy being quote unquote, because there's no really easy game. It's always an upset potential. Would be the Bears and Lions. Everyone else, I mean, just to go through it: Chargers, Bengals, Ravens, Vikings, Titans. Like it's all teams that you could see being really good.
Yeah.
So aside from the Bears and Lions right now being clear, you could maybe argue the Broncos. Besides being clear, like easy wins for the Steelers, it doesn't get much better. So it's like if they're already at this point, I would either give it up to healing, people recovering from injuries, or some really great coaching. But I don't think Big Ben is the one that, when you're that veteran, you just don't turn over the ball and hope that your team is well rounded enough to help you win games. And I don't think they have that right now.
I think it's hanging on to that 11-0 start. And everyone refers back to that. Well, Big Ben's not done. He had an 11-0 start. They made the playoffs. But, I don't know what happened with that 11-0 start. I don't know why that happened. I don't know how it happened. But that's gone. Like, that is in the past. That's so far gone. It's so far from what they are now that you can't even reference that back and justify Big Ben anymore. And it just makes sense. They draft a new running back. Their whole receiving core is all young guys, practically in their second, third, fourth season. His center, Pouncey, he retired last year. it just seems like everyone's moving away,
Yeah.
everyone's moving on, and you still are holding back with Big Ben. And that 11-0 start was, saying Big Ben, he can play. He can still play at his old age. But nothing this year or after that 11-0 start has shown us that he can play. I mean, in the playoffs of all times, you think veterans could come up clutch and play well, and he played awful.
Yeah.
And he has not shown once this year, besides the Bills game, that he could be a elite starter in this league. Um,
And it's weird
and
to. Sorry, you're saying?
no, you're good. You're good. Keep on.
Well, I was saying it's weird to think too. You mentioned like all these young guys, kind of like maybe the team's starting to move on without Big Ben. But you'd think with all the like, think of it just made me think of put any other quarterback like a Kyler or Herbert or anyone else in that position, like how many points offensively per game in a league that's like started to really champion quarterbacks putting up crazy numbers and how good the receivers is, how good Tomlin is at acquiring and developing talent. Like how much more could they be getting with a quarterback of one of the up and coming quarterbacks that are you're starting to see right now? It's just the thought just came to my mind when you were saying that. I was like, yeah, they should be doing more. Like yeah, they went 11-0, but at this point they shouldn't have gone 2-7. There should be more of an upswing.
Yeah, there
Right.
should be. And it's when you draft Najee Harris and you got Claypool and you got Juju and Deontay Johnson,
Yeah,
you have more than enough to score set more than 17 points in Green Bay. Like that's
Right.
that's not good.
Green Bay doesn't even have that good of a defense either.
Mm-hmm.
yeah, and almost any one of those guys, any of those three receivers could on some teams be the number one. I would say. Like that's how good
Yes.
those receivers are.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's tough. It's tough as a Steelers fan, I would assume, because of the start you had last year. You're making the playoffs, but it's also tough because the rest of that league is all young quarterbacks: Baker Mayfield, Lamar Jackson, Joe Burrow. So it's almost like, these young guys are running Big Ben out of Pittsburgh. It's just,
Yeah.
it's just the new time of he just is not able to play anymore, which, that you mentioned, Caleb, the Giants situation with the Eli
Eli,
Manning.
yeah.
And like that was different because they had drafted a first round draft pick. Like you said, Steelers don't have anybody. Dwayne Haskins the only guy back there, and people are calling for him to play, and he has shown that he's been awful. He's been terrible, and Steelers fans are like, we got to put him in. Like we got to get Big Ben out of this. So it's like, you know, it's different with the Giants because they did have a first rounder. Let's see if he's the predecessor of Eli. Let's see how he is. Throw him in. Steelers, they played Mason
Successor.
Rudolph.
Sorry, I just looked it up. It's
Successor.
successor is what the word I
Good.
was. I'm
Good.
so tired. Yeah, but sorry, not that you.
So
Right,
they
there's no
had,
clear successor. Yeah,
yeah, I mean, they had Mason Rudolph play almost a whole season,
yeah,
and
but
it was like they didn't make the playoffs. It was They got Dwayne Haskins. He's been It's like, man, you're really screwed at the quarterback position. You might as well tank and get a quarterback. But
Yeah.
this year,
Yeah.
I don't know who's a good quarterback coming out of the draft. You have a freaking North Carolina quarterback. He's good, but like,
yeah, I don't-
I don't really see anyone that great. Like a Trevor, like last year would have been the time to do it.
Yeah.
Trevor
yeah.
Lawrence, Justin Fields, Mac Jones, all these guys, they probably should have moved up in the draft, but then they wouldn't have got Najee. They're in a tough spot. The quarterback's the best or the most important position,
Yeah.
and it looks like Big Ben's regressing, and it's the end of his time, and they got nobody else as a
Yeah.
successor.
And- but you also hope out of this too big of a thought. But didn't he last season? Didn't he get injuries like concussion injuries too? So you hope that it's nothing like such a big dip, not like anything up here, in the head. It's like if that could explain a year such a dip, you really hope it doesn't, because now the league does a better job at almost to a fault that it's hard to be a defensive player, but protecting those young quarterbacks that you could see them just by the nature of how the games change and how they protect those guys
Mhm.
playing longer. But Brady's kind of an anomaly, but a lot of those other guys, they've taken a lot of beatings since playing as long as guys like Big Ben has. So it makes you wonder too if those concussions add up.
Yeah. It's
100%.
it's amazing because like the human body is amazing because you
Hmm.
can go from being so healthy, and obviously all of us are young, so we probably haven't encountered this yet, but you could see as like our parents get older and grandparents and stuff, you hit this certain age and injuries just start piling up. And there's no
Hmm.
way to predict and be like, oh, next year I'm going to start getting injured a lot. It's just like it just hits you. And I think Big Ben is in the middle of that. Last year we saw with the elbow injury, I think that's what probably started it all. And then you mentioned the concussions. I mean, last week he was on the injury report. This week he now has a hip problem. That's a different problem. I think, and maybe there's something he could have done, but maybe there's not. Maybe that's just
Maybe.
it's amazing. All of our bodies are different, and
Hmm.
it's the same thing with like running backs. You see running backs like all like they're really good, and all of a sudden, like 2 years later, you're like, where are they? They were just one of the best in the league, and now they're basically retired or the second running back on a team. Especially
Yeah.
with running backs and quarterbacks, it's just you hit this point in your career, and I think it's just there's no coming back from this. It's not like he's going to be able to turn it around and they're going to like be able to like be contend for the AFC. Like no, it's over. But it might not be his fault.
Let's move on. So we have a little game. It's in honor of the popular Netflix series Squid Games. Squid Games, man. I wish we were sponsored by them, but we're not. It's just a really good show. Um, so Squid Games, basically, for a quick summary, all these people get into this competition, and they play kids games for money. So the first game that they play in the show is red light, green light, where someone says red light and you have to stop. And if anyone's moving after they say red light, they're out. And then if it's green light, then you're allowed to move up and you got to be able to cross this finish line. Well, we kind of have a different version of that. If you guys pull up your phones, you can pull out the red light and green light. So I'm going to say a team. And if they show red light on their phone, that means, hey, let's pump the brakes on this team. We're not buying into this hype at all. Like, let's stop. If they show green light, that means that this team, we are buying into the hype. This team is the real deal. Okay? We all get the rules.
Yeah.
Hmm.
All right, we all have our phones ready. I'm gonna get mine ready. So the first team, and these are teams that um have had good starts. I mean, there's no real intro to that. So let's start with my team, the Los Angeles Chargers. So the wins have been against Washington, Kansas City Chiefs, and Raiders, with a loss to the Cowboys. So red light or green light, this I was gonna say San Diego, the Los Angeles Chargers. Beautiful. That's what I like to see. Clean sweep of
Green
green light.
light.
So listeners, all green lights.
I
I
talked
mean,
I talked a lot about the Chargers. So if you guys want to say a couple sentences just to kind of give your reasoning.
my only recap, I talked about them earlier, but you got all the pieces together. It's really no injuries. The defense is playing amazing, and we know what Herbert can do because of what we saw last year. So offense is rolling and defense is playing so much better than last year. So yeah, they're obviously AFC contenders for sure.
Yeah, I'll bounce off that. We talked a lot about when Rivers was on the team, that the defense was the only thing keeping them in the games. So if that's playing well enough, that gives Herbert and those offensive weapons. Like I like Herbert. That's kind of the cornerstone of why I like the Chargers period. But to beat the Chiefs is a big statement. To beat the Raiders, who I think during the game they talked about how when the Raiders were trailing 0-14, they were 2-0. And so the Raiders this season have been a comeback, like a second half team, and they were on a streak towards the end. They were able to, but like this, the difference is that the Chargers team this time around was able to hold them off. Like you said, Jared, in times past, it's like as a fan you'd watch, and it's like almost guaranteed that you'd lose. Now at least it seems less likely, and they came out on top. So I think that's why I'm going with all that coming together with the Chargers. I think they finally have that piece with Herbert.
Yep. I'll tell you, it's the one thing that's different when you look at Broncos and Raiders in that division. They have a star quarterback.
Right.
Carr kind of on the cusp of elite, and then Bridgewater being out, put in Drew Lock, and they're back to where they were.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I like Carr. I don't know if Gruden likes him. So if any other quarterback had Carr, they might be able to get more out of him. But that constant tension of like, is Carr the guy? It just,
Yeah.
I think that doesn't help.
It's weird. I
Yeah,
liked Mariota when he came in for
yeah,
Carr that one
I
game.
mean, he had that one huge game. He played amazing.
I know,
yeah.
like I'd love to see him back in a starting role, but he got injured.
Interesting.
So, all right, next team is also my team. As you can see, the Cincinnati Bengals. They've beaten the Vikings, the Steelers, and the Jaguars with a loss to the Bears. Ugh, terrible loss. Are we red light or green light Cincinnati Bengals?
Whoa.
Ooh, okay. So
Oh,
so for people who are listening, it was Caleb and I had green. John had red. He's pumping the brakes on the Bengals.
yeah. I like the Bengals. You guys know I love Jamar Chase into the draft. Once he got drafted by the Bengals, I loved him, and I was telling everybody to pick him in fantasy, and so far it's worked out. But well, thanks for the trade this week. I just traded Jared Jamar Chase in fantasy, but
For Alvin Kamara. Get him off my team.
but no, I love the Bengals. I love Jamar Chase. I love their wide receivers, but Mixon just got hurt. I mean, I'm more worried about the defense, to be honest with you. Losing to the Bears, I mean, yeah, like you said, that's not really a great loss. I know they beat the Steelers, but the Steelers aren't that good. And then the Jaguars, that was an easy win. So as far as this season, I don't think they're going to make the playoffs. I think they're going to push for a wild card spot, but it's going to be tough. I mean, they're in a pretty tough division with the Ravens and then the Browns. They got to play twice. So I think it's going to be tough for them to make the playoffs, especially with that AFC West. I think the Chiefs are going to win that. And then if the Chargers, Chargers or Chiefs, one of them's going to win the division, the other's going to make the first wild card. And then you got the Raiders who are 3-1, probably going to get maybe another wild card spot. So I think the Bengals could push for wild card, but I need to see them get, another defensive player. I need to see them get a pass rusher, get more pressure on the quarterback. I mean, they really don't have any big name guys on the defense.
Trey was the big pickup. Trey Hendrickson.
Yeah,
That was a huge pickup.
from the Saints. I mean,
Yep.
he's a good pass rusher, but I need to see more because I've been watching a couple of their games. I haven't heard Hendrickson that much, so I need to see more of an impact from their defense. Come on, make some big plays.
Yeah, I think that's a fair point. I mentioned before that we were talking about comeback player, and like a bit of why I'm green light for the Bengals is because I would wager that this might be Joe Burrow's breakout season. Like he had early signs of greatness, and now that he's healthy, he's had a year to, maybe not to say the injury was good. I know he talked about the rehabilitation process is painful. A lot of work going into that. But in hindsight, maybe that gave the team a year to kind of acquire the talent, let the offensive line get a little better. That now he's able to capitalize more off that. So my wager is that this could be a breakout season for Burrow and the Bengals to actually, after years of the Bengals in my mind being a bad team, to now actually being competitors. And I think they're just showing that they can compete like that team against anyone. Yeah, I would argue too that the defense isn't the flashiest, but if their defense is there, I think the offense will be able to pick up the pieces.
They have all the players on offense to score 30, 40 points a game.
Mm-hmm.
Like the wide receiving core is amazing. Burrow can stay healthy. Their defense isn't that bad. They got some big names, Jesse Bates, as you said, Trey Hendrickson, Von Bell. Like they have good players. I think they just need time to play together and get some chemistry going.
Yeah.
Let me tell you one thing. This next game coming up against the Packers will tell you if, the hype's real or not.
Yeah, hopefully this is going to be a high scoring game and a fun one to watch.
Yeah, this will be the first real test that they've had. Vikings, Steelers, Jags, not the best competition. Packers, okay, that's a playoff team for
Right.
sure. Let's see if you can beat them this early
Right.
in the season. And that would push you to 4-1, and you're at the top of your own division. That's a perfect place to be.
Yeah.
Let's talk about another divisional rival for the Bengals, the Baltimore Ravens. Now, the Ravens started off with Oh my God, a freaking laundry list of injuries to start the season. And they start the season with a tough loss to the Raiders. Then they beat the Chiefs, they beat the Lions, and they beat the Broncos. So let me pull up my colors. Is it red light or green light for the Baltimore Ravens at 3-0?
Oh,
Really, really, you
Caleb, the only
guys.
one with the green light.
Yep.
Uh-oh. Okay, so let me start. I will just say that I think the injuries um, are going to be too much for them to make a push into the playoffs. I feel like each game they're just kind of scraping by. You know, the game against the Broncos, they did have a great game and win, but Broncos had Drew Lock, so it wasn't a good test. But it seems like every one of these games, they're just scraping by the Lions, the Chiefs, the Raiders. They could have won, they lost. So I think they're too close, and it's gonna have a lot of fatigue on Lamar and all the receivers to try and carry this team. And I don't think they will make a push into the playoffs. I think it's too much workload for this Ravens team with all the injuries they've had.
yeah, you just said it perfect. I think the same thing. The running back situation, Latavius Murray did get 18 carries this week, so it seems like he's going to be the starter in the backfield moving forward. But I think, like you said, Marcus Peters out, their running backs injured. It's put a lot of pressure on Lamar, and Marquise Brown has been performing. We haven't seen much from Mark Andrews, but it's going to put a lot of pressure. They're going to need Rashad Bateman to return, their pick in the draft, a good receiver. But it's put a lot of pressure on Lamar. And like you said, that win against the Lions is concerning because you had to leave it to your kicker to beat the NFL record, to set a new NFL record to win the game against the worst team, or arguably the worst team in the league. Them and the Texans are close to worse. So that is concerning. I think it's going to put a lot of pressure on Lamar. I think to get a wild card spot, it's going to be between them and the Bengals. Like they're going to have to beat the Bengals at least once, if not twice, if they want to make the playoffs.
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie. Like the specifics of, because it's still really early to say the. I think it'll be fun in the next coming weeks to start to like eyeball with more accuracy the playoff, like how the exactly what green light means in terms of like will teams either fall off or will they be running for, will they get to the playoffs, get to the Super Bowl, or be like, I think they'll be green light contenders playing for a playoff position in that, because of that Ravens. I think because of Lamar Jackson is my thing. I don't think the pressure's been a problem for him. I know we talked a lot about him not being a good thrower of the ball, but I think either that's been disproven or you'd have to contend that he's good enough to put up some great dimes to be able to make his receivers do well. I mean, yeah, against the Lions that it came down to a world record, field goal is concerning, but they also have Justin Tucker, who's one of the legendary. I think he's the statistically the most accurate kicker of all NFL history, and
Yeah.
to he's a the Brady of kickers, if you will. To put it in his hands and his feet, so to say, I don't think is the worst thing. It shows to me that you have a well-rounded team that even with the injuries, they still put up some of the highest rushing yards, and it's coming from your quarterback. And to still be willing to give the ball 18 carries to the backup, they're willing to spread the ball around. That Lamar's athleticism is enough to keep them in the game yard, like to open up that facet of if the pass isn't there, he can make great passes, but he can still run the ball, and you can, as a defense, you always have to have a spy on him or negotiate the line to cover up the edges. But that too with the defense, like they're always a team that, especially during their run the other year where they were playing really well, they're a team that looks like they're having fun. There was that news of I think Harbaugh choosing to run the ball with like 3 seconds left in the game instead
Yeah.
of kneeling it. I respect that as part of the game. It's like, and I thought there were headlines too. I forget who said it, but they were saying players like it when the coach will let you, do a harmless run for it's a they like playing for coaches that understand that kind of.
It was for the record, right? Like
Yeah.
100 yards rushing in 4 straight games or something.
Yeah, and it was like they
Why
did
not?
it. Yeah, and then the other coach was mad. I'd be mad if it was my team. It'd be different, the perspective. But I respect that. I think they're having fun. They understand it. Harbaugh, I think, is unlike other college coaches who've made it, to the NFL, have been doing well. I like what I'm seeing. So I'm willing to say they're going to be contenders, and having beaten the Chiefs, having been winning close games, even if it's against teams that's not that good, but to win close games gives you that momentum to get you hyped for the next one.
That's a great point. The chemistry with the Ravens seems like the injuries has brought them more together than anything, which
Yeah.
is it's interesting to think about it. John Harbaugh's brother, Jim, who coaches at Michigan, that team, I don't know if anybody watches college football, but this Michigan team going into the season wasn't supposed to be that good, and they don't really have any star players. But the defense specifically lost a lot of good players, so there's really no one good player. But a lot of analysts, a lot of fans, they've seen that this team, even though they don't have stars, they're a defense that plays as a team together, and they get more accomplished done as a team together than maybe a team that has a couple stars here and there carrying the weight. Everybody plays their role. Everybody knows their role. And when you have that sort of team, I think it's even stronger than, teams who have a lot of star players. When a team that has chemistry and plays together as one, and it doesn't seem like the offense defense is a separate thing. They work together, they communicate together. The coach, refers to the players, and when they went for it against the Chiefs, coach asked Lamar Jackson, he wants to go for it. Like you said earlier, Caleb, in another podcast, like it gets the players into it to where, like, we are down a lot of players. We feel like the underdog every single game, and we're all going to work together to try and win. I can see that being, something for a couple games, but can they do it? If they have back-to-back losses, if they have, they had that tough loss to the Raiders and they came back and won 3 straight. So can they keep it going and sustain that type of energy for the whole season? That's going to be interesting to see.
Yeah.
We have one more, and it's everybody's favorite team, Dallas Cowboys. I wish Jonathan was here, man.
Well, we know what color. They could be 15 and no, they could be 1-15 and they'll still.
He'd be like, you know what? I think they're gonna make the playoffs. I don't know why, but I think they are. So the wins for the Cowboys, they beat the Chargers, they beat the Eagles. Oh man, they beat the Eagles and the Chargers, and they play the Giants this week. Please, Giants, please do not let them sweep our teams.
Oh, we can't.
John will have a field day.
We might as well just
Jonathan.
Well, then next week we won't be here.
Yeah, we'll go to Africa.
Yeah. So they beat the Chargers, they beat the Eagles, they beat the undefeated Panthers, and they lost to the Super Bowl champs, the Bucks. Granted, it was a close game. Jonathan would say that they could have won that and should have won that. The Dallas Cowboys, is it red light or green light on America's team? I hate to do this. I really do.
Me too.
Oh, sorry. I'm messing with the lighting.
Damn it.
Wow.
Yeah.
Clean sweep.
Yeah, we don't need to talk about it. So
all of us did green light reluctantly.
Yeah, I mean, if I'm just gonna say one thing, it's the defense is actually coming together with what's his name, Trayvon Diggs.
Yeah, Trayvon Diggs.
Dude,
I mean,
give him, John. Give him the stat that you have as I fix my freaking light. Give us the stat with Diggs. I think he has a catch in every game.
He has a catch in every game, and he's a defensive player, so he has an interception. He has an interception in every game, and actually he had 2 last week. Remember last week on the podcast when I was talking to people about Robbie Anderson, and I was telling the Panthers, I was like, guys, if you're the Panthers coaches, please listen to me. You got to script plays for Robbie Anderson, because if you keep going to DJ Moore next game, which was this past Sunday against the Cowboys, then you're going to be embarrassed by Trayvon Diggs. And guess what? We learned that the Panthers don't listen to our podcast, unfortunately. But
we thought they did.
We thought they might listen to the podcast, but turns out they don't, because DJ Moore had 2 touchdowns, and they, even after Diggs had two interceptions while covering DJ Moore, they still wanted to go to DJ Moore. So I don't know who's in the coaching room, but
all
come
their
on.
plays are set up for DJ Moore. So when they look in the playbook, it's like DJ Moore, DJ Moore, DJ Moore. Like, we have any
we don't have
Robbie?
time.
And like I don't see any for Robbie Anderson.
The coach looks to the offensive coordinator. He's like, "Did you put any for Robbie in this week?" And he's like, "Nah, forget it. Fine."
I left it on the bus, coach. Damn it.
So basically they got embarrassed by Diggs. But yeah, that defense, obviously, with one player on their defense getting 5 turnovers in the first 4 games is incredible. So obviously that helps lock up the top receiver for the other team. And then we all know about the offense. They're actually running the ball a lot more, which Zeke has been great the last couple of games. So we know the offense is great, but with the defense playing much better than last year, this is obviously the team that's going to win the division. I don't think the Giants are going to win the division. So I think they're going to contend for the NFC. It's going to be tough. We're going to have to see later in the season with injuries and stuff, but yeah, they're obviously green light for me.
Yeah, and I would just agree. There's not much more for me to add. Just Dak coming back healthy and how durable and consistent he is. And like you said, they were putting up a ton of offensive points last year too. But now that they have Parsons as well, they have a good defense now. That pains me to say it, but they're in a position to be greenlit. Like they're doing well. It shows that Dak is that a quarterback good enough to win you games, and he's healthy and he's durable, which is a very important aspect in this game. So yeah, if I'm a Cowboys fan, I'm sitting pretty for now because, like you said, injuries could change things. But with the run game too, even Zeke was a little off. But who are the running? Is the other running back on the Cowboys?
Pollard.
Yeah, Pollard is doing really well too. So the offensive line's doing a good job too. So I think with those in time, it pains me to say it, but they're green light for me.
Yeah, this could be the last time we talk about the Cowboys if we really want to. Let's move on. That was it for our red light, green light game segment. Now we're going to go quickly to John's fantasy football segment. And if you don't follow us on TikTok and on Instagram, it's at Dorn Bay Podcast. John posted some players that you should be trading for, and he's going to mention some in this segment. If I'm correct, John.
Yeah. So I just wanted to mention, I posted a video yesterday actually saying 3 players that you need to buy low on right now before it's too late. So last week on my fantasy podcast, which we post Saturday mornings, I talked about some players you can buy low on, but I wanted to reinforce that or change up the players also because it's another week. But 3 guys that I said you should buy low on now. The first was CeeDee Lamb. The second was George Kittle. And the third was Calvin Ridley. Now, all of them have been pretty bad recently. A lot of people DMing me about Calvin Ridley, want to trade him, want to get rid of him. He hasn't had a 20-point game yet, but with Cordero Patterson getting 3 touchdowns this past week against Washington, that's insane. But he can't keep that up. They're going to have to start throwing to Ridley, and I think this game against the Jets is where he finally gets his 20-point game. But I wanted to mention CeeDee Lamb first. He's a perfect opportunity to buy low on because the first 2 weeks he had 24 targets. That's amazing. That's averaging 12 targets a game. With 12 targets, you're probably going to get at least 7 to 8 catches, which could lead to like 70, 80 yards and maybe a touchdown. That's like a floor of 15 points right there. But last 2 weeks ago, he had 9.5 points against Philadelphia. And then last week, the Cowboys put up 36 points and CeeDee Lamb only had 3.3 fantasy points. That's really discouraging if you're a CeeDee Lamb owner. So if you know the guy, or if you could find the team in your league that has CeeDee Lamb, I would go out and make an offer for him. Somebody you could offer is a Chris Godwin or something. Somebody who is on a team, has been playing well, but with Gronk coming back soon and Brady dispersing the ball to AB and Mike Evans, Chris Godwin's not going to keep up his production. And with Gallup still out and CeeDee Lamb getting a lot of targets, I think CeeDee Lamb is due for a breakout game. Like the Cowboys can't run the ball every play. I know they've been running it a lot lately, but against the Giants this week, usually it's a pretty high scoring game between them two. So I think this is the game that Lamb has a good week, over 15 or 20 fantasy points. So definitely trade for him or extend an offer to somebody in your league if they have him.
Are you willing to go up CeeDee Lamb in our league?
I do have CeeDee Lamb. I am willing to give him up, but not for Chris Godwin.
Jonathan, if he's listening. He's
Yeah.
like, dang it.
He's like, I was just gonna offer him Godwin for Lamb.
All right, let's move on to our last segment. It is our week 5 predictions. I want to say last week I was finally right.
You were. The Bills did beat the Texans. You don't have to eat a pickle.
Don't eat a pickle. Let's make this a streak. We're going 2 for 2 back to back. So my prediction is something that, maybe last season wasn't a bold prediction, but this week I think it kind of is. The Chiefs over the Bills. I'm taking the Chiefs over the Bills. That's it. I got to start. Okay, start off really easy. Now I'm getting a little easier. Then I'll start getting bolder and bolder as the week goes on. But I want to rack up the points here.
Some cred. Yeah.
The Chiefs have kind of sucked lately. So, I mean, I feel like everyone would have the Bills over the Chiefs. Am I wrong?
Okay. Interesting. My bold prediction is a little not related to the outcome of a game, but to a coaching situation.
Ooh.
I think if not by this Sunday, if they were to lose this Sunday, the Jaguars will no longer have Urban Meyer as their coach.
Oh,
yes.
Wow.
Yes.
That's just my thing. I think it's surprising. So I thought the Pat McAfee show they had some feedback on this. It seems like he's lost the confidence. It's one thing for off-field issues to, happen. It's very questionable. Obviously, it's not something you like to see from your head coach. But apparently, the way he handled it also lost the confidence of the team. That even guys in those positions that he canceled the meetings on Monday to deal with the fallout, and then instead of getting the whole team together, allegedly went in groups. It's it just didn't sound good the way the team reacted. So if you're supposedly in a 5-year contract, right, and then you're already lost the confidence of the team and the owner saying that you have to regain their trust, I just don't think it looks that good. And I think if they lose again on top of these issues, I just don't see him being the coach.
Wow.
That would be one of the best days of my life.
I don't even
wouldn't you, don't you want to see him stay there and keep losing though?
You know what's gonna happen? I'll make a bold prediction. He's probably gonna be like, oh, I have headaches. I get headaches on the sideline. I'm gonna have to retire again.
Oh, so he's just gonna make an excuse to leave.
Yeah, he's gonna.
I saw memes about that. What's the story about? I'm not a big, I'm not super into college, but there was literally tweets saying he's not going to resign, but he might have some injuries off the field that might have him retire again or something like that.
Yeah. So the reason he retired when he left Florida, when he coached at the University of Florida, was because he was kind of getting these really bad migraines during games. And I think it was just from the stress level and stuff. So then he retired. And then a few years later, Ohio State comes by and they're like, you want to coach? And he's like, sure, I'll come out of retirement coach. Then Ohio State comes and there was that thing with his assistant and the sexual assault and how they thought he knew about it. And there were text messages saying that he knew about it. And there was this whole thing and he had to fire him and it was just bad. And he's like, yeah, the migraines are back again. I'm going to retire at the end of this season. So now he unretires, goes to the Jags.
Oh,
now
gosh.
There's huge fallout.
Bro, there's way more
migraines are going to be back.
There's way more stress at the NFL level than the college level.
What got me thinking that maybe it's, and again, I mentioned it, some college coaches don't adjust as well, and some do. But when he said that every game is like the Alabama, that's certainly insightful for, the stakes of every game. Even when there's a bad team in the NFL, there's the standard is so high that you can never really discount them. You saw last year, I think it was the Jags or the Dolphins, two teams that were tanking and they still managed to win. I remember, I think the Miami Dolphins beat the Patriots late in the season and they ended up knocking the Patriots down a peg.
Oh, that was the Hail Mary thing. Yeah,
something like that. It was crazy where Gronk kind of dove for it. But
yes.
That comment, as well as we talked the other week on the podcast about how some of the coaching environment, the assistants around on the Jags weren't as great, and kind of there was tension already with Urban Meyer, and some of the analysts I listened to were saying that it's a much different dynamic when it's that level of professionalism, when you're dealing with the players are professionals and it's their career and their livelihood versus when you're like in a college setting, you're more like a mentor. You have a higher authority over these guys, and you can recruit the people. So I think in principle there are good things to that, and also bad things where you don't have total control on. You're really at market demand and what you can get. So I don't know if that transition has been something that he's adapted well to. And then you add the off field stuff that is disturbing. Yeah, if they were winning, if they were undefeated at this point, this is the NFL for you. I would bet this wouldn't be as much talk. But considering how they haven't won a game, then if they lose again, I think it's just going to be like, yeah, we have a young quarterback here we plan to keep for a while, and he can develop. We got to work on him and move on. But yeah, I think that's my bold prediction.
I want to mention one thing.
Yeah,
and
I want to hear John's.
I know. I just want to mention one thing that I found on TikTok, and it was when Urban Meyer was a analyst for Fox, like literally just last year. And this is the criteria to examine for a struggling team.
Oh, jeez.
Number 1 is trust issues.
Wait, is this what Urban Meyer said?
This is what Urban Meyer, he was on Fox last year. Talking about signs of a struggling team. So the first one is trust issues. Then second one is dysfunctional environment. And then the third one was selfishness.
Bro, he's committed all those crimes within the last week.
Within the last week. It's incredible. And you know what? It goes all the way back to what I talked about when he hired his first coach, who he had to then fire because of alleged issues at Iowa Strength. He was the Iowa Strength coach, and there was issues with him. And somehow in his first hire, he doesn't do his due diligence and find out that he, did stuff to kids. Like, I just don't see at the very, very first hire, he did something wrong. It's bad, but yeah, I like that. I like that bold prediction, man. I tell you that. I hope
it's real bold to say next week. I know I'm like, but it just doesn't. Like you said, I mean, I want to get to John's in a second, but I looked up the quote too. I think that's real. I didn't know he said that, but he goes into more where it's like, number one, every time I've seen a team struggle, it's been one of 3 categories. Number one, there's some trust issue. The players don't trust the coach doesn't trust the players, or awful when the players don't trust each other. And it seems like a lot of it's around coach.
If he had owned up to it, went on Monday and said, look, this and this happened, I'm sorry, blah, blah, blah. But he had to go into each of the positional rooms, never said it in front of the team.
Supposedly,
practice on Monday. So now you're affecting your progress of your team.
Yeah. And
players did not like that.
And like it made me think too. And I know we're bagging on it for a while, but it's different when you're winning, and it's different the position you're in. Like, not without going too much into detail, but Robert Kraft, the Patriots owner, had some off-field, questionable allegations, behaviors, and I don't know if he was fined for it, but it's different when you're the owner, and it's different when you're winning in the NFL. So I think considering that he's a coach and they're losing, like, I hate to say like that's how the business works, but especially when the owner isn't really on your side either. I think it's just a matter of time.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see. All right, John, you better have a good one. The wait has been long.
Oh, I have a really good one.
Oh, okay, good. The wait must be worth it then.
The wait was worth it because my bold prediction for week 5 of the NFL season is that the Bills are going to go into Kansas City. And they're going to beat the Chiefs. And this is the reason for it. This is week 5, right? If we go back, rewind 1 year ago this week 5 of the NFL season, the Kansas City Chiefs lost one of their 2 games of the season to the Oakland Raiders. And then if we go back another year to 2019, the Chiefs lost in week 5 again to the Indianapolis Colts. So what is this theme here? This theme seems like the Chiefs, just can't. Their unlucky number is number 5.
They're not a week 5 team.
I think with the Bills destroying the Texans, winning 40-0, I think they're going to go in. This is the perfect time to beat the Chiefs. The Chiefs defense is struggling really hard. Jared's light just went out.
I know.
So
I thought that you did that on
I'm not
purpose.
fixing it. I'm not fixing it. All right. I'm not.
I
doing
thought
it.
you were subtly some.
I think one of us is going to be wrong this week, but I don't think it's going to be me.
Imagine if they tied though. That'd be so funny. Just because like,
Okay,
oh, we saw Dorn debate, we can't.
Caleb, can you look up the line for that game? Just super
Yeah.
quick before I end this podcast, before I throw this freaking light out.
It's Chiefs -2.5. So the Chiefs are favored by 2.5
That's
points.
so surprising for the start that they've had.
But they're at home.
I know, but they lost at home to the Chargers.
But it's going to be hard for Vegas to put the Chiefs as underdogs.
I thought the Chiefs would be, but I guess not. So the line is 2 under. It's gonna be close. All right, so one of us is gonna be wrong.
Yep.
Interesting.
We'll see.
All right, well, we definitely went way over in this podcast. According to my light, it's broken twice today on one podcast. That's definitely a record. But so as I said before, if you're not following on Instagram and on TikTok, it's at Dorm Debate Podcast. Please go follow us on there. We're going almost 1,000 strong on Instagram. We're at 52,000 on TikTok. So go join those. We have great content over there. And as always, subscribe to the YouTube channel. Please, we're going to try and get to 600. That's our next goal. And as we mention every week, John has a fantasy football podcast coming out on Saturday mornings. And be sure to tune in to the best live on TikTok Sunday, noon Eastern Standard Time. He'll be going live, answering all your fantasy football questions, doing rankings, weekly picks, must-sits. It's a great time. It's a great show. So tune in for that. And thank you guys for watching, and we will see you guys next week.